Put our guys through the film, get a chance to correct it. It's always a little bit easier to grade them after a victory than after defeat, so that was a positive thing. Offensively, we gave the offensive MVP again to TJ, but did recognize several guys, both running backs, both tight ends, both fullbacks. As honorable mention guys did some good things. Also, Colton Jackson probably played one of his better games up front on the offensive line, so guys are coming together a little bit better there. On the defense side of the ball, actually our MVP was Jake Hall, played his best game of his career, was very, very active, had the one penalty, obviously, that is a great teaching moment. I think both of the late hits on the quarterbacks were really good teaching moments for our defense. During the course of the game, Jake's wasn't overly violent, but it was a little bit late, and he extended both hands, and that push kind of got the call. And on Sosa's, obviously, at first they interpreted it as a roughing and a targeting. Actually, on the field, they came up to me and said, the officials told me that it probably wasn't a roughing call, but they had to call the helmet-to-helmet, which caused the ejection and obviously removal from the game. So big coaching points. We haven't had a lot of those this year, or been close to it. So some teaching moments there. And then our special teams MVP were Connor Limpert and Ryder Lucas. We had 7 kickoffs, and 6 of those were touchbacks, and he was kicking into the wind. Just Connor's really hitting stride. Obviously hit his PATs and his field goals, which every point mattered in that game. So that was big for us. And then Ryder Lucas has just been a steady. He actually starts on all 4 units. He's been outstanding all year long. And yesterday had one of the only few tackles on punt, and also we only had 1 kickoff return. He made the play, and that was a big point in the game. You know, we wanted to keep the ball down there as far as possible. Obviously, it was a 1-point game, so a field goal would have won the game. So we wanted to have a great coverage, and then to turn around and go 4 and out. Defensively, we had a lot of things we needed to correct, but the opportunity for those guys to take the last 3 possessions, go 3 and out, and then, of course, the 4th down, 4 and out at the end of the game. Offensively, responded when it needed to. I think that the part that I really looked at the end of the game, you know, the time of possession and whatnot, they were a team that controlled the football a lot, just didn't give us a lot of opportunities offensively. Only had 4 of them in the first half, scored in 3 of the 4, but the defense just couldn't get off the field. And then when we were able to finally get off the field, that's when the game changed and made a few plays. So from an injury standpoint, came out of it pretty healthy. This week we'll get C.J. O'Grady. I think he'll be back ready to roll. Just was really sore the day of the game, as can be expected. DeAndre Coley, who did not play in the game, and Brito Tutt, both defensive backs that do factor in quite a bit because they play on all of our special teams, and they are also reserves that played quite a bit of football for us in our opening games. When we don't have those guys, then our safeties and corners got to play the whole game as well as they're tapping into their special teams. So when we've lost some of the key injuries that we've had to affect our overall depth, it kind of just a trickle-down effect. So we hopefully are going to get those guys back, and I'll just alert everybody just in case. I know the world works this way now. Cole actually got his foot stepped on, or his toe stepped on, got an extreme turf toe, so he is in a little bit of a boot, but is fully functional. Shouldn't be an issue for him during the course of practice and preparation for the game, but just a real sore, nothing structural, just a really, really sore bruised toe. So Austin Allen practiced last week, really from Wednesday forward, but he's cleared 100% to go. If we would have practiced Sunday, he would have been there. Could have put him in the game Saturday, but obviously the way the game unfolded, we didn't want to put him into that situation. We want to keep the flow of the offense going the way it was and continue to grow him. So we'll get into LSU, you know, a team that obviously is a rivalry game, a boot game. You know, when I first got here, they had the boot, lost our first year, and then we were able to take 2 from them. We've won 2 of the last 3. Go back over there and play an 11 o'clock game on national TV. I know our guys will be excited, and hopefully have a great week of preparation. We'll get going tomorrow. We got an early jump yesterday, but it was just film work and preparation. We'll get going on Tuesday with on-the-field work and go forward from there. So open up for questions. Yeah, I think we'll get to it later in the week to find out exactly how healthy everybody is. But I do think that the neat thing for us on Saturday was, you know, we told Austin and we expected to get him in the game. And there probably was not a better guy on the sidelines from not only working with Cole. I saw Austin step in when maybe we had a drop, and he talked to the guys about making plays on critical downs. So his leadership skills have been outstanding, and his desire to win. I think a lot of kids in those situations would maybe turn the other way or not be as engaged in the game. It just shows the competitive spirit he has. I would tell you this, I bet you no one's pulling for Austin to play more than Cole, if that makes sense, and vice versa.
I know Austin's got a lot of experience, but if he is the guy, how tough is it that he hadn't played him since the first game back of that LSU?
You know, I think two things. He although he didn't get fully cleared till last week, he's been involved in practice the 2 weeks prior to that. So it's not like he's coming in just cold this week and playing. He totally expected to play on Saturday. I think our team expected him to play, and because he's gotten so many reps and practiced so well, makes you feel good. But there obviously is a concern. And anytime you have a guy that hasn't played to step in, and especially as daunting as LSU Stadium is, and as good as their defense is, that can be an issue. But I'd be very, very comfortable with Austin playing anywhere from one rep to every rep.
What do you think your relationship with Matt Canada has for this game? Coaching with him, is it played his role, and has he changed things a little bit?
Yeah, I had a tremendous amount of Matt. So Matt first came on the scene. He was at Indiana as a play caller. I think that's when I first ran across him as a head coach and a coordinator. And then when Dave Doran left me to be the head coach at Northern Illinois, we both had a lot of respect for him. That's when he hired him at Northern. And then when I had an offensive coordinator transition, that's when I hired him up at Wisconsin. I have tremendous respect for him, kind of a guy that runs a lot of multiple looks, multiple personnel groupings. He tries to keep it very simple. You see a lot of the things on film that maybe on the outside world looking in, it looks like there's a lot going on, but the way he calls it and the way he says it is very simplistic and gets a lot of players involved. He plays to their players' strengths. As far as he and I personally, he's had a good relationship, I think a positive one all the way through.
They went after Alabama's corner big time.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, seeing that last week, they're going to do it again?
Yeah, I think, again, he's very good at playing to the players' strengths, and maybe they, at that point, I don't know how much they thought they were going to run it, and they wanted to expose that or loosen it up in coverage. But he definitely has a game plan for every game, and it pops up very quickly.
Did you team up bringing him here with you? I guess you went to NC State. How'd that help?
Yeah, well, him and David had a prior relationship. There were some things panning out here. People I were talking to, obviously I ended up hiring Jim, but there were a lot of people that I was talking to before that. Some things I was trying to wait on through NFL, different people who were free to play or free to come at that time or who weren't. So I know he had to go with the opportunity that he had at the time, and I don't know how it all played out, but I knew where I was going before that was kind of official.
I was wondering, what your thoughts were on the crowd maybe in the season, and also how maybe that affects your guys during the game? Does it affect recruits,
We talked about playing in front of our home crowd. Didn't really address anything about crowd size, whether we think it's going to be a full stadium or if we were concerned about it. All we do is play at home and get a chance to get our crowd going. Appreciate all the people that stayed, and obviously saw a good game in the end and the celebration. So, there's anything more to that?
frustration on your part with the seasons or anything like that?
No, didn't even really take notice. Obviously it's something that we overall do, but I knew we were going to play a non-SEC opponent, and it was homecoming game and everything goes into it. But if as a head coach, you got to worry about the 11 guys on the field, not the guys that are up in the stands.
Do you anticipate announcing a starting quarterback, or is that something you guys will keep in-house until Saturday?
Again, I think I covered that Saturday. Anything that could be a strategic advantage for us, whether it's the quarterback or how much TJ is going to play or whether or not we've done certain things with him, should better staying in-house and showing up on Saturdays.
You got a lot of Louisiana guys, usually do, but what do you think? You got a lot of guys in key spots.
Probably the biggest, I knew coming into Arkansas, obviously kids from Arkansas and goes with it, but the proximity and then Michael Smith coming from Louisiana has allowed us to recruit in there, and a lot of recruiting battles with LSU on guys, not just the Louisiana players, but maybe players that were on in Texas and Florida. So there's a lot of that goes with it, and then because we've developed a roster of so many Louisiana players, it's become a bigger deal. But on the same account, I think all of our guys, and evidence that first year or my second year here when we won the boot, how many guys that aren't from Louisiana were so engaged with the preparation to get the boot, and then obviously after the game was won, the celebration around it. The same thing the next year, and then last year, to be quite honest, the disappointment to not retain it, I think hurt our guys a lot, and that's something we're playing up this week for sure.
But how far enough do you think you and the Louisiana guys are to go back home playing at home state?
They'll be excited. I think you got to be a little bit cautious with it. Anytime you're dealing with guys that have a personal, for instance, Cole. Cole's a young quarterback in his career that's very excited. He's always a guy that plays with high energy and high emotion, and now he goes to his home crowd, and he's going to be a starting quarterback. That's a lot of emotions for him to deal with, and you just got to try to temper it all week and get him to play within himself.
So you just name him as a starter?
Well, I think he can be a starter, absolutely. There's no reason to change where we're going. I think obviously to give us the best chance to win, you got to take that part into it. But again, like I said last week, going into the game against Coastal Carolina, and this week we have two quarterbacks that have started and done a nice job.
You can talk to the guys all about the possibility of trying to win to a bowl, whether it's 5, 6 wins, or just relying on pride.
No, I think there was a little bit of that came out in the Auburn prep. Guys were talking about where we could go from there. There was a reference to the last time that they were here, and I don't know if I can't remember the math. That time was we could get to 8-4 or whatever it was, and I thought there was a lot more dialogue on what needed to be in place, and that was the preparation at that hand. So after that game and going into the Ole Miss prep and last week of Coastal Carolina, and nothing's varied for that now, is I think when we get into our season as deep as we are, no matter where you're at, you just concentrate on the task at hand. And last week it was them. This week it's LSU, and I try to reiterate, and I think guys buy into it. But it's natural reaction in today's world. Everybody tries to go a little bit beyond what's in front of them, and the more you stay at task, the better you'll be.
Besides TJ's and new problems over the last 2 years, what do you feel like has been the struggle for him to get on the field? Is it blocking and the fact that what do you think?
Well, as a true freshman, we definitely, we saw he has electric capabilities. We brought him in as an athlete, didn't know really during recruiting. I remember sitting down with him and the people involved. We're going to use him at running back, wide receiver. We kind of said we're going to lean towards running back. Got him in at running back, and he had some success. I think he'd be the first to tell you it wasn't as smooth as we had hoped or he had hoped with ball security, but then also just running our entire offense. Last year we did have a guy that led the SEC in rushing, so we were pretty good, and Devois did a nice job as well. So then during the spring, just trying to maximize our roster. Talked to a few guys, some guys moving from, there's guys that did, chase Hayden Johnson, crossed over between fullback and tight end. We did take TJ, said he wanted to cross over between running back, wide receiver. He wanted to jump full, go into wide receiver, and not split duties, get as good as he can at that position. Really felt good going into our opener. There was quite a few plays that were designed to go to him and be good. But he unfortunately, we didn't make a big deal at the time, but he had a knee surgery that prohibited his ability to play probably for the first 2 games. For sure the first 2 games, really bet on 3. Then I think if you go back and review your notes, I did document that he unfortunately had a foot that got stepped on, which limited him through 2 more games, and he wanted to get out there, and we all do. So the good news is he's been very, very good. I'm sure you guys found it fun too, like he had never caught that screen pass before, went for a touch, so it shows the ability he has, but it just takes a long time. So he's been a running back now. This is our 3rd week. We practice install basically on Tuesday and Wednesdays. When you're into the season, he's had about 5 practices to learn running back and be full scale on it, and he's doing an exceptional job. He's really, really been above expectations, and you're gonna hopefully continue to make him grow.
Isn't it maximizing his explosiveness more about getting him in the right situation than it is the number of touches?
Yeah, but I'm just gonna, not to play football 101, all right. But if you're a defensive coach and you realize a guy's on the field and only gets the ball in a certain way, it's counterproductive for you as well. So we'll try to get him in there as much as we can and continue to bring along his depth of the offense to make sure he stays there. The good thing is he's absolutely awesome, great attitude, energy, excitement. Kids like it. He's having a great time, and I think the more he grows, the better he'll become, and we'll all be better for it.
And I know you wanted LSU, night before, but they like to play at night. They definitely don't like when they have kickoff. How do you think you guys are catching a bit of a break with your?
I get the question, but I'll bet you if you ask LSU in their locker room, they like playing Arkansas anytime. You know what I mean? It's a rivalry game. We don't control anything about TV times or when or where. We just play the schedule that's in front of it. I'd hate to venture to guess how they do or don't feel. The LSU team I've seen on film looks like they're ready to play pretty much all the time.
Yeah, they slowed it out with Alabama pretty good. What do you think of their defensive effort?
Yeah, are a team that probably, from a just pure numbers-wise, talent-wise, match up very, very well. Their defensive line, their linebackers. We recruited a couple of those guys. Their secondary are very, very physical, get their hands on you. And that game has always, since I've been here, been a knockdown, drag-out. And again, it was even going down until late in the game. It was a game that probably just a break or two away from probably being a little bit closer than on the scoreboard at the end. So got a very physical team on our hands and one that we got to prepare for.
Gary Stansky was kind of banged up earlier, but it looks like he's okay now.
Yeah.
What do you thought?
Even going,
Last year, what do you think?
yeah, I would say even going into last year, there was a lot of dialogue whether who was going to be playing at running back and Geis. And the thing that I'd witnessed in the games leading up to our game a year ago is how talented he was and the opportunities that they were giving him. And I'm sure they're very similar to a lot of teams when you got several guys at one position, being able to balance out the reps. You just try to do it the best you can and that make guys take advantage of their opportunities. This year we knew he was going to be kind of the featured guy and has been that guy. He runs with a great demeanor. He probably has the whole bag of tricks. I mean, he's got speed, he's got ability and agility to run you over. He's very patient with his blocking scheme. So, but they again too have a couple guys at that position that can play good football.
We didn't have on this game. How big was that Johnny Gibson fumble?
Yeah, we gave him I mentioned MVP strictly because of that. He just Johnny plays hard, man, and that was a very opportunistic play. One, we take probably 2 days during the spring and 2 days during the fall where we work strictly just fumble recovery with O-linemen and guys that traditionally don't touch the ball because it's moments like that where it's the biggest moment in the game, and if you can't recover a fumble or ball it and secure it, you're in trouble. And he did an excellent job. And then, as is the case, sometimes those situations turn into big piles, and people are very creative on the bottom of those piles to get the ball out. And he stayed true with it, came out with it, which was a big play.
How did the Cantrell run package come about? Was that like a goal line thing, or?
Yeah, it first came about actually at the beginning of the year, talking about having a bigger. We didn't have when we lost Raleigh, our true big back went out the door. You know what I mean? We had Devois and David, who are both, okay, but they're not true big backs. So, Raleigh was a bigger, thicker guy that we would have been able to use in multiple reasons, but we liked him in short yardage and goal line. So that's when we started talking about the package that actually came out of, I believe, Steamboat, when we started putting Cole back there. Because if you Austin Cantrell's high school film, they used him in every way possible. He was a Wildcat quarterback, he was a running back, he was an outside linebacker, a defensive end, and tight end. And that's when some of those guys on offense hadn't been involved in his recruitment. I threw out that idea. And then when Cole took over running that package, that kind of diminished that. Plus, we were getting Cantrell way too many reps with the evolution of Jeremy Patton. That's taken off quite a bit of workload off of Austin. He's been able to perform a little bit better. We'd like to keep him in that 40 rep range instead of 60, and that opened that opportunity.
Was Nick Canada working for you? I know it was a while back, it was only a year, but does he have any insight into your thinking, you think, or do you have insight into his thinking, or how does that dynamic?
Well, we definitely worked together for a long time and known each other. I don't think as far as, I don't call plays, so there isn't anything there. He does obviously know philosophies and different thinking we would have, but not anything that I think would give any specific tip to anything in this game. On the flip side, I worked with him and understanding what way they call things, but all it does is bring familiarity to you when you see it. There's not really any advantage you gain from being able to know what their playbook or a call or anything along that lines.
You spend extra time almost saying, hey, watch out for this or look out for that.
There is I think there's some concepts that carry through, but as is the case with each week, offense, defense, special teams, we come up with designs with the people that are in charge, the coordinators that run those, and then we kind of share the ideas and bounce ideas off them. But during the course of the game, I think the thing about Matt, he's very creative, very opportunistic. He takes advantage of looks that he sees that can get you. And on the flip side of it, each week he changes quite a bit of the way things look and how he attacks, but staying consistent in the same things, if that makes sense, And so you learn appreciation as you watch his game kind of evolve, especially even this last week against Alabama.
Looked like Cole did the toe thing late in the second quarter.
Yeah.
Do you think that impacted him after?
It was sore, I think, but, he's a guy, of course, the deep ball, you wish there was some, but, that fourth down play, I mean, I'll go down to, you know, when the game's on the line, how accurate are your throws? And obviously that fourth and whatever it was, 2 or 3, that was right on the money, outside hands to John. So that was in a critical moment there. Some of those screen passes at the end, some of the plays that he made were